What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Reezy Talks. This is episode number 32, and today we have a very special guest. We have Watch Me Amazon. Larry, how's it going?
I am doing excellent, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited for this one. The people have been asking for you for a while, man.
Me too, bro. It's always good to talk to you, man.
Awesome. So, why don't you just tell everyone who you are, a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and then we can go into where you're at now.
All right, quick question before we get started. I'm looking at the YouTube screen and I don't see video. It says Hangouts on air, but I see chat. Can you guys hear me? Or can you see me rather
It should be
on
working.
YouTube?
I see it.
So I just see Hangouts on air. But if you guys see it, all good.
Are we good, guys? How are we doing out there? What's the audio and video look like? We're good, guys. Just real quick, triple check it. All right, good. Maybe you need to refresh the screen, Larry.
All right, give me 1 second. Let's do
But we
that.
got people seeing. Please smash the like button if you haven't yet. I somehow got 3 thumbs down and we haven't even started yet. So I'm
So
obviously doing something right.
I'm
Like
getting
Grant Cardone says, if you don't have haters, you're not doing anything.
I'm getting an ad on my side, but I mean, I guess if you guys see me, we can just go forward.
So basically, you've been doing this since 2011, correct, Larry?
I believe I actually started selling end of 2011, beginning of 2012.
Awesome. And so what were you doing back then, right before you started?
So I was actually a stockbroker for many, many years. I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of high school in junior year, right when I was about 18 years old, to pursue a job as a stockbroker. Did that for many, many years, had a couple of decent years. Most of them were bad years. And right about 2011, I was just in a pretty bad place. I was probably going on 3 or 4 years not making any type of money at all, compiling a lot of debt. And I was just kind of spinning my wheels. I should have probably quit the business that I was in maybe, a year or 2 or 3 before I did. But I was just, again, I was coming to work, spinning my wheels, not getting really anywhere. And then in 2011, I quit that industry. I said I had enough. I was looking for just basically any kind of job to make ends meet. I didn't care what it was. I was going into local stores, asking them if they needed any help. I remember there was this pizzeria locally in the hood where I'm from that I went into, and I asked them if they needed a delivery guy. They didn't hire me, of course. But in 2011, I was lucky enough, I guess just the timing was perfect. One of my friends had a opening. He had an optical store. He had an opening for a customer service rep. I got the job with him. It was just a regular 9 to 5. I think I was making like $500 a week working with him. And at the same time, while I was doing customer service for his optical store, he also had an eBay business and an Amazon business. So on the eBay business, he was selling glasses, sunglasses, and different eyewear. And he kind of hired me to be the guy in charge of his eBay business. So I was doing that for a couple of months. And at the same time, I was watching him build a very successful Amazon US FBA business. You see, aside from the optical store, he also owned a beauty salon, and he was selling those beauty products. He was opening accounts with vendors and distributors because he had access to them because of his beauty salon. And he was building an Amazon US business. And after I had worked with him for maybe it was 6 or 7 months, he approached me and he said, I want to build and scale Amazon UK business. Why don't you run it? We'll split the profits 3 ways, because he had a partner. And that's kind of how I got started in Amazon. Using his accounts, he told me pretty much all about it, kind of showed me the ropes, and just left me out there, said, let's see what you can do with this Amazon UK business. Here's the tools that I have on my disposal. And I built that business up from nothing to a 7-figure $1 million UK Amazon FBA wholesale business. dealing primarily with the beauty supply and health and beauty primarily. In 2014, me and him had a falling out, and that's when I started my current business, and that's when I actually first started working for myself and not for someone else.
Awesome. So, obviously, you learned everything or a lot of stuff that you needed to know enough to start your own business. Did you have money saved up when you started your business, or did you get a business partner, or what kind of capital did you have when you started out on your own?
So it was funny. So when I started working with him, we had a successful Amazon UK business for about 2 years. I was making pretty good money. I was also getting married at the time. So, aside from, I kind of spent the last 2 years paying off the 6+ figures in debt that I had accumulated from all my years of being an unsuccessful stockbroker. So most of my money was going to pay off that debt. At the same time, me and my wife, Fran, we were getting married. We were in the middle of planning a wedding. And that's when things kind of started to go a little bit left with the guy that I was working with. He started to do some real shady shit, and kind of in a nice way, just politely showed me the exit to the business. He didn't really want me involved. I don't know if he was upset that what I was doing with the UK business was more successful than the US business. His partners in the US business kind of started getting a little tight, that they were making 5, 10, 15 grand a month, and I was making more than they were making. So they got a little tight. He pushed me out of the business. And when I actually quit and said, you know what, I'm done working with you, I'm going to go start my own business, I was kind of pretty much right back where I started from square one. I wasn't dead broke. I wasn't in debt, but I didn't have a lot of money saved up. Whatever little bit I had, we spent on our wedding to get married. And yeah, as far as investment goes, I didn't really have much. So I reached out to a couple of my friends to see if they wanted to invest. And one of my friends did have some money. He was willing to put it up and become a 50-50 working partner with me. And that's where I got the initial capital to start my Amazon FBA business. He invested $50,000 into the business. To this day, that is the only money we ever put into the business. Everything that we have today, every inventory, every sale, it all stemmed from that same 50 grand.
That's awesome, man. That's great. And so what is your numbers for last year?
So last year we did a little less than 13 million in sales, and about 12 of that was from the UK. And I was just starting my US business then. It was we did probably even a little less than $1 million in the US, but we did $12 million in UK business between all the different marketplaces we would sell over there in the UK.
That's awesome. And just if you guys tuned in or we didn't explain it properly, Larry does wholesale. So we're talking wholesale. What kind of margins do you get on average with your wholesale inventory items, Larry?
So typically when I'm sourcing and looking through, different vendors, offerings, and catalogs, I don't like to buy anything that has less than a 40% return on investment. However, as you guys know, when you actually buy stuff and you send it to FBA, a lot of times by the time it gets there, certain SKUs, the prices get killed, prices go down, everything fluctuates. So when I'm sourcing, I'm looking for items that have a ROI of about 40%. But I think when everything is said and done on our deposits, we'll probably keep anywhere from 20 to 30% net will be our net profit from the deposits that we get.
Awesome. And also you said you try to do like $5 profit per unit, right?
Yeah, so I'm not looking for just 40%. I'm looking for 40%. Plus, I also have a minimum of $4 a unit. So, if there's an item that I make a net profit of like $3 on, but it's 50, 60, 70% ROI, I still won't buy it. So I'm looking for 40% ROI on any item that I source net, but then it also has to have a $4 minimum profit.
Great way to have some padding for the unexpected lowering of prices and stuff.
And
right?
then, yes, and then from that $4, I always like to take anywhere from $1.50 to $2 off the top, which will cover all of my expenses. So everything from rent to staff to supplies to shipping, most importantly, if I'm making $5 on an item, if you take into account all my overhead, it's probably $3 net, and you have to have some kind of minimum. At least for me, the way I run my business. So, that $5 is a pretty good way to start. From that $5, you have all these different expenses. Let's say that's $2 net at most. So at least at the end of the day, you're left with a $3 net profit when everything is all said and done. And that's all right.
Yeah, that's definitely all right. So, especially when it works out, but tell me about some of the times it doesn't work out. I know recently you had a stack of toys, and I was like, oh, what's up with those? I think it was some Nerf ammo or something. And you were like, yeah, that was great until I bought it all and the price tanked, and now I'm going to lose money on it.
So it happens all the time, right? I've never sat down and tried to actually figure out what the number is, but I would say out of every 10 items that we order or reorder from one of our suppliers, I would say it's not uncommon for, at least 2 or 3, maybe even 4 of those, by the time you buy them and do the research and the item makes sense and it gets to Amazon FBA, that you're actually like, the item was good when you ordered it, and now when it gets to Amazon FBA, it's no longer good. Maybe the rank went, the item is not ranked well anymore, or maybe someone killed the price on it. And I don't just want to sit on my inventory. I want to liquidate it no matter what. So maybe, we went from making $5 on an item to now we're only making 3 or 2 or 1, or at very worst case, break even. But I would say that probably happens conservatively 3 out of every 10 items that we buy and source from vendors when we send it to Amazon FBA. Probably 30% of them don't work by the time they get there.
And so I'm guessing that you try not to dwell on that and just continue feeding the beast, right? More and more inventory.
Yeah, I mean, this business is all about dodging bullets and dealing with adversity. I mean, if there's one thing that I can tell someone who's not in the business, that's what this business is all about. Whether you're, working with items that you buy them, by the time they get to Amazon, they're no longer a good investment. Whether you're working with bad feedback, whether you have complaints from Amazon, whether you have stuff that you bought and then you get restricted on, whether it's IP complaints, whether it's new Amazon rules, there is literally just another headache, another issue, another problem that you have to address and you have to work your way around literally every single day. And that's what sums up the business for me the most.
So speaking along the lines of that, I know that, obviously having your eggs in one basket is not a great thing. And Amazon, we all know that Amazon is fairly automated, and we're all liable to get that email any day that says, important information about your seller account. You've been suspended, you've lost privileges.
Yes.
What kind of things do you do to safeguard against that?
So I don't do as much as I should, right? So one of the smartest things to do is diversify your sales channels and sell on eBay and sell on Walmart and sell on Jet. And I don't really do that, and I should. That's probably one of the best things that I can do, that I would recommend for people to do. But I'm just kind of so focused on Amazon that I didn't get around to doing those yet, and that's to my detriment. But what I have multiple selling accounts. I wouldn't advise anyone out there. I mean, it's not good advice for me to tell the viewers that, you should go open up these ghost accounts or open up a second or a third or a fourth account. It's against Amazon rules. If you don't absolutely know what you're doing, it's a very easy and a quick way to get shut down and get banned from Amazon. So I don't want to recommend that to people and say that's what they should be doing. But that's the playing field that Amazon created. We're all just kind of playing by their rules. And it is something that I personally do to kind of give myself a little bit of a cushion, or a little bit of like an insurance policy if one of my accounts got suspended. Because at one point in the beginning, I only had one Amazon account. My account got suspended for a completely ridiculous reason. All my inventory was overseas in the UK. I did not have another selling account ready to go. And then I was literally out of business for 4 or 5 months until I was able to do a removal order, get my inventory back, set up a new account, get ungated and everything. So it's something that I would do. I wouldn't recommend like any of my students to do it unless you absolutely know exactly what you're doing.
Right. But like you said, that's the field that you're playing in. And so a lot of your competition probably are doing stuff like that. So
Yes.
when you're swimming with the sharks, you got to become somewhat sharky.
Yes, of course. And the first two Amazon accounts that I had that were different accounts, there's actually a way that you can reach out to Amazon and you can ask them for permission and get approval to have a second or a third account. And that's the way that I would recommend everyone go about doing it. At the very least, have another account maybe that you don't have to actively use or sell on, but have some type of a safety net there. So if God forbid something happens to your main Amazon account, you're not sitting on the sidelines for 6 months crying to Amazon, because they honestly don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. It's not their job. They got other things to worry about. So you sell mostly in the UK right now still?
So last year we were like 90%. This year we're probably like 65% UK to US. I think the last time I checked, we were a little under, this year, a little under 8 million in sales for UK, and I think right around 5 for the US. So we're
Nice.
slowly building up the US business.
So you grew the US business from under 1 mil to over 5 mil in 1 year pretty easily.
Correct. And the UK business actually shrank from about 12 million last year to about 8 million this
Any
year.
specific reason, or is that due to your focus on setting up the US business?
No, I would have loved to set up the US business and continue to grow the UK business, but there are certain things that are out of your control. One of the main things that made the UK so appealing was when you're selling on Amazon UK, you're selling everything for pounds. And that currency conversion is super tight. When I first started selling in 2011, it was almost 2 to 1. It was like $1 was, I think, at its highest, like 1.75. £1 was $1.75 at the time when I started Amazon. And last year, because of the Brexit concerns that they had over in the UK, the pound for like the last year and a half was just slowly getting worse and getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. This year, it got to as low as 1.2, even below 1.2. So what that would mean is, if we had a catalog of, for easy math, let's just say 1,000 SKUs that we were buying and that made sense when the pound was at 1.75. If I have a certain criteria, which is 40% and 5% minimum profit, that conversion plays a big factor in it. So when the pound went from 1.75 to 1.2, almost half of the items that would work and make sense when the pound was at 1.75, at 1.21, they don't make sense. And when they don't make sense, I don't reorder these items. So our catalog was pretty much cut in half in the UK. And the main reason for that was the currency conversion.
Dang.
And,
Yeah.
like I said, there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't dwell about it. I don't cry about it. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can change. The only thing that I can actually change is if I had a catalog of 1,000 items, when the pound was at 1.75 and then the pound went down to where it is today and only half of those items work, I just need to go out there and open up a lot more accounts with different vendors and add a ton more inventory and sources to my business and try to find 1,000+ items that work with the pound at where it is today. And then if the pound goes up and, if one day, God willing, it goes back up to 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, all those items that used to make sense, I'm not buying them, but we're monitoring them. So as soon as the situation changes, if it goes up, we'll have that much more. But, the only thing that I can do with something like that is just get more sources, open more accounts, get more vendors, add more SKUs into the mix. And, that's pretty much it. You play with the hand you were dealt.
Do you sell on in other countries other than the UK, or is it just the UK?
No, so we sell in the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. But we ship everything to the UK direct. And then they have a tool called the European Fulfillment Network, which basically takes all your listings in the UK warehouses, translates them, lists them in all the different marketplaces. And when someone buys your item on Amazon Germany or on Amazon France or Italy or Spain, Amazon UK will ship it to the German fulfillment center, which will then forward it on to the customer. They charge a little bit of a fee for that, but I don't put in really any work to those other marketplaces.
So do you get paid in those currencies, or does it come back to you in pounds?
We get paid in those currencies. So in the UK, you get paid in pounds. Everywhere else, Germany, Italy, France, and Spain, you get paid in euros. There's also that little currency conversion. The euro is a little bit higher than the dollar right now, but what it does is it takes our UK price and it converts that to the equivalent of the euro. So whatever we're selling the item for in the UK for the pound, we'll get an equal amount of euros for it. So I don't really have to worry about the.
So does that mean that you have to also have a European bank account and a UK bank account, or do you store both currencies in one bank? I don't even understand how that works.
So the way it works is to sell on Amazon UK, you do not need a UK bank account. You can have a regular US bank account, and Amazon will take those pounds, and for a fee, they will transfer those pounds into dollars and send it directly to your US account. So you don't have to have any kind of special, bank account or anything like that. If you want to sell in Germany and Italy and Spain and France, then you do need an EU bank account. And there are different companies out there that I use, Currencies Direct and World First being two that come to mind, that will actually save you a lot of money when it comes to converting that currency. I think Amazon charges like 3 or 4%. So if you're doing big business, they take a lot. I pay as little as 0.75 or 1% with Currencies Direct.
That's huge.
And World First and Currencies Direct will also set up your UK and EU business account for you, which will then unlock the Italian and the Spanish markets.
Nice. Are the inbound shipping fees to UK similar to your US shipping fees, or what are they looking like?
They're actually a lot more expensive. So the one biggest problem with sending pallets of stuff to the UK is, of course, going to be the shipping. In the US, we have the best thing ever, which is Amazon Partnered Carrier, which basically lets me ship pallets to fulfillment centers in the US using Amazon's rates, which is super cheap. You're pretty much not going to get a better rate anywhere, probably not even worth your time negotiating unless you just do, ginormous business.
Are you getting like 10 cents a pound US, 25 cents?
It all depends on, the size of the item, because there are some pallets that you can fit, 5, 6, 700 items on a pallet. If it's pills, you can fit, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 pills in a pallet. If it's like some kind of big toy, you might only fit 40, 50 on a pallet. So it all depends on the size and the quantity that you're shipping, but paying anywhere from 7 cents to 20 cents to 25 cents a pound in the US is not unheard of. When you're shipping overseas, unfortunately, they do not have Amazon Partnered Carrier, so you're kind of left to fend for yourself. So what I found was the $2 per item fee that I associate with any product that I research. That $2, if you're doing volume, is typically enough to cover your expenses, your overhead, your bills, your staff, and your shipping. But the actual shipping portion from that $2 can be anywhere from like $1 to $1.50 per item.
So it's all going on boat, right? So you have to forecast like 30 days ahead.
It doesn't go on boat. It all goes on air, which is a lot more expensive. You could do on boat, but what I found is the marketplace on Amazon changes so fast that if I was shipping things by sea, it would be so hard to do research unless there's an item that I'm like an exclusive seller on and I don't have to worry about competition. It would be so hard to buy an item and see what it's trading at today and then ship it to Amazon by boat. That might take 3, 4, 5 weeks. By the time it gets there, whatever it's selling for today, it doesn't matter, because in a month it's going to be probably a totally different situation. So that makes things very difficult. One of the key things in the US to UK business is speed and getting things there. That, same thing for the US. You want to, when you do research, you want to make sure that you get the item and send it to Amazon as soon as humanly possible, because who knows when that marketplace situation is going to change. The item's at $20 and it's doing very well right now. Who knows if it's going to stay at $20 for another day or a week or a month. It could be, it could be $10 tomorrow. So you want to always US, UK, whatever it is, you want to get your stuff to Amazon as soon as possible.
Definitely do. How big is your warehouse? How many square feet is it?
So my warehouse is about 4,200 square feet. So when I first started and I was working for the other guy, he was working out of a 1-bedroom kind of ground level on a house with a garage that was converted to an office. When I left him and had a falling out with him, we were at first working out of an apartment on the 13th floor of a building, doing all the prep work, all the stuff, bringing deliveries upstairs in the elevator to the apartment, packing everything in the apartment. We couldn't build pallets, so when UPS would be downstairs, we would ask them to give us like an hour or 2 heads up. We bring, hundreds of boxes downstairs and build the pallets curbside. Then, from there, after a couple of months, we graduated and got our own little single-family 2-bedroom house with a driveway that we would build pallets in. After about a year of scaling the business in the house, we then were looking for warehouse space because we were.
And was this the house that you actually lived in, or just for business?
No, it was just for business. So when I first started, it was my boy's mom's house, who I had a partnership with, and we were doing everything there. When we outgrew that space, we looked to rent a house, not far from where we lived, and we're working from there. And then as we scaled the business and there was literally no room for us to breathe or move in that house, we figured it was time to get a warehouse, and we're currently in Red Hook, Brooklyn, have about 4,200 square feet here.
What does that cost you per month?
It's very expensive in New York. It costs me $6,300 a month, which actually for the type of warehouse that we have and the size is a very good deal.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure. A lot of people, they might think they can't do this business, what you do, or any of this stuff. But the great thing about wholesale is that you don't have to live in a certain area. The products are going to come to you as long as you have UPS. If you have trucks that deliver stuff to your house, you can get wholesale products delivered to your house. And to be honest, people who live in a much cheaper area, they might be able to get that same warehouse you have for a third of the cost, a fourth of the cost. So they actually have a huge advantage. I think Brooklyn, where you live, is the #1 most expensive place to live in America.
Yeah, #1 and #2, and the the commercial property prices are equally as expensive. However, when you're working out of your house originally, there are certain vendors and certain distributors that won't ship stuff or just won't do business with you if they know that it's going to your house. But when you're just starting out, you don't have money right away to get a commercial space, nor should you if you're just starting out. So you kind of have to work your way around those type of objections and, again, play the cards you were dealt. Certain vendors will work with you, certain vendors won't, but you don't bite off more than you can chew. You kind of scale the business and you go from your house to a bigger space, to a bigger space, to a bigger space. One of the things I pride my business on is the level of efficiency that we have. I see businesses that do less in sales than we do, and they have a massive operation. They have 10, 15, 20 different employees. But we try to be very, very efficient.
How many employees do you have?
So I have 2 full-time, and That's including my partner and another full-time guy that we have working. And then we have 2 part-time guys that are on as needed basis. So during the week we have, our 2 full-time guys, and then maybe, we need one of the part-time guys 2 days during the week, the other part-time guy 3 days during the week.
How did you find your employees, other than your business partner?
How did I find my employees? So
Yeah, like, how did you advertise, or how did that work out for you?
Kind of just word of mouth. So there was a lady that I knew who was actually my personal cleaning lady, and it was her brother. I reached out to her. I asked her if she knew anyone that wanted to work, and I found someone that way. I've also put ads on Craigslist and stuff like that, but I found it, pretty difficult finding like a good quality worker. But just
like, people come and go pretty quickly, or like, how did that work? Did you just right away find some that stayed for a long time, or?
So I was lucky enough to have this guy with me. So when we first started the business, our own business that we own in 2014, it was just me and my partner. We're starting the business. We don't have a ton of money to burn. So everything that we're going to do ourselves, right? We're going to manage the business ourselves. And we're also going to pack ourselves. We're going to label ourselves. We're going to ship ourselves. We're going to source ourselves. Once we started making a little bit of money, that's when we would take on the extra help. And the guy that we found from the beginning is still our worker today. I had one other guy come and go. He was with me for, I think, maybe 6 to 8 months. He was kind of like a slacker, slacked off a lot, but I don't have a high churn rate of employees.
You're still doing all the back end work though, right? You still source all the products, create all the shipments, print all the stickers,
correct,
oversee the shipments built, and then they just sticker and pack shipments.
Yeah. And it's kind of to my detriment. It's not, I shouldn't. I'm trying to focus now on spending less time doing the actual Amazon tasks, the creating shipments, the placing orders, the doing the shipping, answering emails on Amazon.
What do you say is the most important aspect of the business, the one that you would want to focus on?
So the one that I would want to focus on would be building new relationships and just adding as many different brands and vendors and distributors and getting them into the fold as much as possible.
Not even sourcing the products, just creating the opportunity to source more products.
Well, that is kind of sourcing the products, because then I would take those vendors, whatever catalogs they have, and I would, go through them and figure out what I want to order. But, the problem that I have that I think a lot of people might have, and it's something that I'm working on fixing, is I'm very anal. I'm a control freak. It's to my detriment. I know it's something that I need to change, but I want to do, every little detail myself. I get very nervous, giving some of my workload to someone else.
Sure.
But in wholesale, one of the most important things is the managing of your inventory. And it's very difficult for me to want to give that away to someone, but I'm in the process of working every day with my partner and training him, on my exact methods and exactly the way I want things done, to kind of have him take over the day-to-day tasks of managing the account and working with all the vendors and placing the orders and creating the shipments in Amazon. That's kind of the most time-consuming, tedious stuff. And I wanted to kind of teach him how to do it up to my standards, so that I can focus on the more important aspects of the business, which is building relationships and opening new accounts with different vendors. Because without that, your business is pretty much done.
So approximately how many orders do you have per day right now across all your platforms?
So it depends. There's wild swings all the time, but anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 per day.
That's nice.
And there's, that would probably be an average. There's definitely days where we have more. There's definitely days where we have less.
Right. What'd you do on Prime Day, last Prime Day? I saw you posted it on Instagram. You were like, something like only in America.
Yeah, I don't remember what the exact sales number was on Prime Day, but I know the last couple of Prime Days, the amount of units that we sold were pretty much our best days of the year on Prime Day, typically.
Just bananas, right?
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
So, can you talk about how you source a product so that everyone can understand what they would need to do after they found an account?
So one of the questions that I get asked the most is, how do I open accounts with vendors? I get a lot of people, telling me that they don't want to do business with me. They don't work with Amazon sellers. And just a lot of people on the wholesale side of the business get rejected from vendors. So one of the things that you kind of have to do before you start a real successful big Amazon FBA wholesale business is kind of build a foundation for your business. And what I mean by that is any brand, any vendor, any distributor, they're in the business of selling products, and they want to sell you these products, but they want to sell these products to real businesses. And what I mean by that is they don't want to sell, they don't typically like to open accounts with someone who is just a stay-at-home e-commerce, Amazon, eBay flipper. So there are a couple of hoops that you have to jump through to get these wholesale accounts. The more hoops you're willing to jump through, the higher success rate that you're going to have with actually landing good vendors and good distributors. So probably the first thing that you need at the very, very, very bottom level is to have some sort of a business entity. So whether it's incorporated, an S corp, an LLC, and then to have your business license, to have your resale certificate. That's what you need on level one to have any chance of landing any kind of accounts, right? Once you have that in place, and a good tip that I can give you is, if your LLC has a name that sounds like a specific niche, where your LLC is Reezy's Sporting Goods Inc. When you approach a distributor or a manufacturer of sporting goods stuff, and you're speaking to them from Reezy Sporting Goods Inc., it's going to increase the likelihood of them doing business with you. Then there are different rungs of the ladder as far as making yourself a legit company. You want to present yourself as a legit company, and any little thing that you can do to be more legit will only increase your odds of landing these accounts, right? So you need a corp. You need very, very much so, you need a e-com website, or at least a landing page that presents you as a distributor, or an e-commerce site. If it's a fully functioning e-commerce website, even better. And as you jump through these hoops and climb the ladder of making yourself a legit company, if you have access to a brick and mortar store, if you open up a brick and mortar store, if you have a commercial address as opposed to a residential address, as I mentioned earlier, the website, if you make it an e-com website, even better. These are all little things that you can do that would increase the likelihood of a distributor working with you. Once you have that, it's all pretty simple, right? I mean, sourcing is sourcing. I guess the only thing that's different is what the source of your product is. So if you're doing retail arbitrage, or you're thrifting, or you're hitting up the bins or something like that, so you're in a physical store, or you're in a physical place where you're looking at inventory and you're scanning it and you're trying to see what the rank is. Is it something that sells a lot and it's something that's profitable? Then there's online arbitrage, which are doing the same thing, but you're not physically scanning the item in the store. You're scanning the item online. You have a list or a catalog or a source of items online, and you're, quote unquote, you're virtually scanning it. You're looking up those items. You're seeing if they're selling, if they're popular, if they're ranked well, if there's a good enough margin in it for you. And in wholesale, same exact concept, except the source that you're using to look up these items is a little different. And the source in this case is typically the catalog or the website that any particular wholesale distributor or manufacturer has. But it's the same thing. I'm looking through their items, and I'm looking them up on Amazon, and item by item.
I see you mostly you're doing paper catalogs, yes?
And I hate paper catalogs. I don't really like to do them. It's mostly Excel catalogs with a few websites. So
Do
you'll
you use
have
any tools to go through those catalogs, or do you just bang it out manually?
So I was banging it out manually for literally up until a year ago. I was doing everything manually, and I cannot stress enough to anyone starting out. There are tools that'll do it faster for you, but in the beginning, do not use those tools. Do everything manually, because just the process of doing that for half a year or a year, when you do it manually, it'll give you such in-depth understanding of the marketplace and sourcing, that just doing that with some kind of tool out there is not going to give you. So for knowledge sake, do everything manually. I was literally doing everything manually up until about 7 months ago when I had my own. I found a software developer who built a program for me, which would allow me to take these websites or these catalogs and upload them into my software, and it'll just do what I do manually. It'll do it automatically for me and at a fraction of the time.
So then you
But
just go through the results and just verify that
double
the
check them.
software did good job.
Yes, of course. But if I started like that from the beginning, I cannot understate how much of an advantage manual sourcing gave for me, how much of an understanding of the business it gave for me. It is absolutely priceless. If you're just starting out, do it manually. It takes a lot more time. There are some lists that I get from vendors that have, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 items in it, whatever it is. Just go manually. You're not going to get through it all at once. Maybe you'll get through the first couple of, first 1,000, 2,000 items in a week or two, and you'll have 5 or 6 items to order, and you'll place that order and you'll get those items into your rotation. And then when you have some more time, you continue down the list. But doing it manually gives you a sick understanding.
Generally, what's the ratio of keepers per inventory that you go through? If a supplier has 1,000 SKUs, how many do you expect to be able to find?
Over 99% of the stuff is junk and will not work.
Pretty much similar to everything else, really.
Yeah, so I'll give you, let me see. So I'll turn on my computer. It was off, but I'll turn it on and run it. So the software that I built has a catalog of, I think in the US, it's about 45,000 items. So 45,000 items, what I mean by that is my software has a list of 45,000 ASINs that it's always tracking, it's always monitoring what the price is, what the rank is.
And those are from vendors that you added into your software.
Yes, from about 20 different vendors. So it's always keeping track of these 45,000 SKUs. And at any given time, I can hit a button and it will tell me from that 45,000 how many of those SKUs actually work. And I would say it's probably 1 to 2% that
So
works.
you're also using that, I guess, to make decisions to go, oh, this one's not profitable anymore. We need to cut this.
Correct, right. So, one of the most important things in the wholesale business is the process of how you reorder. I never like to buy too much of any one item. There's almost never do I buy, 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 units of the item. Even though if I did, I can probably get a little bit of a better price for it. But the reason why I don't want to do it is I don't want to buy, 2,000 units of an item, and it gets to Amazon and, I sell 100 or 200 units and everything is good. And then someone kills the price. And now I have to make a decision. Do I just sit on that inventory and have my money tied up? Or do I want to, drop the price to match the buy box seller? And, I don't want to tie up too much of my funds in any one product. So I typically
right. So go wide, not deep, right?
Yep. So I typically like to buy anywhere from 1 to 2 months worth of a product. And when that item gets to, and I set the number in my software, right? So when the item gets below 20 units, it will then, based on the price, based on the rank, and based on the criteria that I put in there, it will then make the decision that, hey, you bought 100 of these units. 80 of them are sold out, you're running low on inventory, you have less than 20 units remaining, it's time to reorder it. And then it'll tell me the same way as I would do it manually. It would look at the price, it would look at the rank, and it'll tell me, is this something that I should reorder? Is there a minimum 30% profit? Is there a minimum $5 profit? If yes, it'll tell me to reorder it. If not, I'll just sell off the rest of that inventory, be it for a break even or, a buck profit or $2 profit, whatever it is, and I'll sell out that inventory, and then I won't order it. And I might never reorder that item again. I might reorder it, in a month from now, in 2 months from now, but I'm never reordering stuff that doesn't meet my criteria.
Is there any type of products that you just hate selling? Something that, you could make money, but there's too much problems involved with it? Or
so I don't think that's
do you pretty much just sell?
No, I'll pretty much sell anything, man. So, if it makes my criteria and, and I can sell it and make money, it won't matter to me at all what it is.
Awesome. Any categories that you're particularly, that you like particularly more than any others?
So some of the best, and they're the best from a shipping standpoint because, typically smaller and lighter items, when you're sending them to Amazon, you'll get such big savings shipping them that it makes the item a little better, as opposed to like stuff that's really big or bulky or heavy. When you're sourcing any kind of item that requires additional preparation or making bundles or, any kind of liquids and stuff like that, you actually have to bag and everything like that. So I take whatever prep needs to be done to an item into consideration. Probably the easiest thing that we can do is a pill. A bottle of pills, they don't require any kind of bagging or prep or anything like that. So we go through them pretty quick. And then we have like bags of flour or stuff like, or 2 packs of shampoos or stuff like that that require extra bundling. One of the things that I don't really hate anything if it's making me money, but one of the things that are the most annoying ones are glass bottles. So they require extra prep. They require bubble bags, which is a little bit more of an expense, and it just takes the workers a little bit more time to get through them. But, like I said, I don't care what it is. If it makes money, I'll sell it.
Awesome. Not discriminating on dollars here.
Absolutely not.
How do I find some suppliers? I don't have any suppliers, Larry.
So get asked this question all the time. It's a fairly simple answer. So I don't have any kind of magic secret or magic tip, but just know any store that you guys pass in the real world, whether it's a clothing store or a supermarket or a grocery store or an electronics store or whatever it is, all of these physical brick and mortar stores, they're all getting their stuff either from distributors or brands directly or manufacturers, and just do some sleuth work, do some investigating work. Where are these stores? If you're a pharmacy, where are you getting your health and beauty supply from? If you're a grocery store, what suppliers are you using? These guys have in their physical stores the same shit that's being sold on Amazon, from shampoo to candy to chocolates to boxes of Oreos, whatever it is.
So that would be things like what, like catching the pallet unloaded in the store and maybe photographing the boxes so you could see where they're coming from?
Any method works, right? So if you're sneaky or tricky enough to do that, that's dope. You can go speak to someone in the store, that's dope. Probably the simplest thing is Google, and Google is definitely your friend, and I can guarantee you any single supplier, including every single supplier that I personally use, they're on Google. Right? They're on the net. They're not hiding. They're not hidden. They want to be found. So I'm not going to tell you who my suppliers are, but chances are if you're looking for them, or if you're looking for suppliers in general, you'll probably come across them and you'll find them. And it's not really rocket science. Some people tend to look for wholesalers The term wholesaler kind of includes a lot of shitty middlemen. Maybe you want to look for more either brand direct or big national distributor, but there are big national distributors for any type of company, right? So if you want to sell clothing, there are a handful of the biggest, the top 5, the top 10 clothing distributors in the country, the top 5, the top 10 toy distributors in the country, the top 5, the top 10 health supply, beauty supply distributors in the country. They're all out there. It's very easy to find them. Like I said, you just have to weed through a lot of garbage and a
So
lot
are you dealing more so with brands direct or with distributors?
Definitely more so with distributors, in some cases more with brands direct. But, I spoke earlier about setting up the foundation for a profitable wholesale business. And the foundation is make yourself into a legit company, a company that makes it easy for vendors to and distributors and brands to want to work with you. And the more legit you make yourself as a company, the easier it is for you to open that account with, the
So that would be your first step of advice for me is to establish myself. Get off this
my,
YouTube live, get a
my
website,
first,
set that
my
up, drop a
first,
couple grand on a website.
correct. So, and a website is fairly cheap. 500 to $1,000 will get you up and rolling. When
For
I
a basic
first
one, right? Not for like a fully functional shoppable website.
You can get a fully functional shoppable website for like $1,000 or $2,000. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything sick. It just has to be, it just has to look the part and it has to act as if, right? But yeah, my first rule to you would be to get incorporated, which you probably have. Make a website. If you make it, the nicer you make the website, the more success you're going to have. If you make it a fully functional shoppable website, the more success you're going to have. If you make a commercial address, the more success you're going to have. But one other thing that not everyone is going to do, but if you have access to a brick and mortar store, or can even figure out a way to make, to piggyback, or to for some people that have money and really want to play the game on a high level, if you can open up like a front store, or even part of your warehouse or your commercial space, make it look like a retail space. If you have a retail brick and mortar and a website and you're incorporated, there is virtually no distributor or wholesaler or brand that is not going to work with you. Everyone will work with you. If you don't have the store but you have the other things, 80% of them will work with you. If you don't have the store, if you don't have the website, I didn't have a website for my first 2.5 years that I was doing it, and I was just kind of calling people up and talking my way into it. So, it's definitely possible to do it in all stages of the game.
Awesome. So social skills are definitely important.
Absolutely.
Would you say this is something like a Shopify website could come through with, or it's got to be a custom website?
No, it can definitely be. I would probably say that, a Shopify or a WooCommerce or something like that, that's, simple, that you could, have a couple of SKUs up there and look and act the part, some kind of framework, something on Shopify, something that's easy. Find a little, health and beauty or sports or toy website out there and get together with a developer and say, hey, make me this kind of website. Let's get a catalog of 20, 30, 50, 100 different SKUs on this website. It might cost $1,000 or $2,000, but if you look and act the part, you're going to get accounts with vendors and distributors that someone who doesn't have that website won't get. And you'll make your money back that way for sure.
Awesome. So we briefly said piggyback, and I don't know if some people might not understand what that is, but basically, if you know someone who owns a brick and mortar, they already have access to different brands and different distributors. So what you could say is, hey, when you place your order, I'm also going to put 10,000 down and order some other products, and they just make larger orders, and maybe you grease their palm a little bit or whatever. But that's one way to get access to stuff that you might not have access to.
So I'll tell you guys what I did. So when I first started, I was very heavy in the health and beauty categories on Amazon. That was kind of like the first shit that I started with. And because when I started, I didn't have my own website. I didn't have my own storefront. So there was all these different type of health suppliers, different, supplement and vitamin brands that I wanted to open accounts with, but they wouldn't deal with me. There were a couple of people that I knew just through my inner circle. A friend of mine had a friend that owned a pharmacy, and I would reach out to them, and I would say, hey, I'm interested in buying from your homeboy's, pharmacy. Let's use some of his accounts. I'll give him a little bit of a markup. You obviously have to have some negotiating skills and work out a good deal for yourself. But in the beginning, I was using, two different pharmacies here in New York that were, if you're a pharmacy, you have everything. You have that brick and mortar. There's no one who's going to turn you down to do business with you. So I would reach out to them, and I would pay them anywhere from a 5% markup to a 10% markup of my orders. So if I would order, 10 grand worth of stuff, I would pay them 10.5 or 11,000, depending on whatever deal it was I negotiated with. And then I would open accounts, or they would open accounts with whatever brand or vendor I was looking for using that pharmacy. And, we would coordinate and place the orders, and the orders would ship to the pharmacy, and I would show up in my truck and pick them up. And obviously adding 5 to 10% on top of the price that you're paying for is going to eliminate a lot of products that, were otherwise profitable. That extra margin is going to, reduce the number of SKUs that you can buy. But in the beginning, it's better than nothing. You know what I mean? So
Right.
We started our way from there. And then I spoke to one of the reps who told me, hey, listen, here's an example of a website. Why don't you just build a website like this, and then we could open an account and sell to you directly. So I went ahead and did that. And then, instead of paying 5%, and 5% on a lot of business, there are certain pharmacies and brick and mortars that we were paying upwards of $100,000 a year in business. So when I went ahead and actually built a website, the amount of money that I was saving was phenomenal. And of course, there are still some other vendors that won't sell to me because I don't have my own brick and mortar store. So I still have to go through a third party and pay a little bit more. But now I'm in the process of looking for a bigger warehouse space, and a warehouse space that actually has a storefront, so I can put 1 or 2 or 3 shops in the front and have my own brick and mortar. And it's going to cost me, a lot of money initially. But the money that I'll spend by paying the commission of 5 to 10% that I'm paying all year, it's going to pay for itself in the first year.
Awesome. So I'm just curious, how many SKUs do you kill every month, and how many new SKUs do you go live with?
So by kill, I'm assuming you mean how many SKUs we lose out to the market conditions on Amazon.
Yeah, just
right?
the ones that you're not going to reorder, and then the new ones that you recently discovered. Like, what does it take sourcing wise, to sustain the business that you're at? How many new SKUs do you have to add every month? And then just, what's the turnover? How many per month on average are going to die?
Super good question. I would say I don't have an exact answer, but off of the top of my head, I would say a couple of 100 items at least go from something that worked and made sense and was profitable a week ago or a month ago when I ordered it. And right now the item is about to sell out, and I'm not going to reorder it because, I was making $6 on it, and now I'm making $1.25 on it. So a couple of 100 at least get killed that we no longer order. But however, at the same time, we have a catalog of close to 50,000 items that are always being monitored and are always being watched. So when those 200-300 items go from good to shit, there will be another couple of 100 items that are shit today, but tomorrow the price of them is going to go up. And yesterday it's something that I didn't order. Today it's going to pop up and flash on my screen and say, hey, this item that was shit last week, now it's good. Now,
so without actually sourcing new SKUs and adding them to your catalog. So that just illustrates the importance of having your local database that analyzes all those SKUs for you consistently.
Correct. Yeah, so that's very good. But I will tell you, there are always, more often than not, SKUs turn to shit, and they don't always go back up and they don't always pop back up to when you want to reorder them. So it's super, super, super important to add new items, new catalogs, new lists into your sphere of influence, into everything that you have access to, because at the end of the day, you're always losing items. It's always getting less. It's never getting more. It's always dwindling and getting
So how
smaller
many
and
fresh
smaller.
items per month on average added?
I don't look at it in terms of items. I look at it in terms of vendors. I try to get at least one or two vendors a month. It'll greatly vary. One vendor you might get 2 or 3 SKUs from. One vendor you might get 100 or 200 SKUs from. I will be totally honest and tell you that I have been slacking and not adding as many different new relationship and new brands and new vendors as I should. But you always want to be adding that. That's the blood of the business. That's the lifeblood of the business. No matter what, you always want to constantly add stuff to it.
So how many live SKUs do you have? Like how many different various products do you carry across all your stores?
Close to 2,000 in the US and a little over 1,000 in the UK.
Awesome. And I know you have multiple stores, so do you carry the same product in multiple stores at all, like competing against yourself or occupying more of the page real estate, or is it all separate products in each store?
So it's case by case. So there are certain accounts that I have permission from Amazon to open another account, and those I have to keep separate, right? So if I have a health and beauty account and I want to, reach out to Amazon and tell them that, ask for permission for a second account and to sell only toys, then those I would keep separate. But, I don't want to bullshit you guys. I would be lying if I said that I didn't have accounts that don't have the same things on them and are taking up 2 or 3 or even 4 slots of the buy box to keep
Yeah.
it 100.
And that's a major key right there because you're occupying more screen real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's 5 sellers on a listing, and all things being equal and everyone sharing the buy box. So if there's 5 sellers on a listing and you're one of them, you're going to get 20% of the buy box. If you're 2 of them, you're going to get 40% of the buy box. If you're 4 of the 5, you're going to get
That's so
80%
damn
of the buy
smart.
box.
That's so damn smart.
Again, though, this is something that I wouldn't recommend to people who are taking my advice, because if you don't 150% know what you're doing, it's super easy
Right.
to get your account shut down. And at the end of the day, I don't want to risk my accounts for anything. But to keep it real, I have a family to feed. I have bills to pay. And I don't want to hit a roadblock where Amazon will suspend my account for some stupid shit, and then they're going to have me jumping through hoops for the next 3, 4, 5 months to getting my account up to snuff to where I could, do some business.
Right. I think it's the same with everybody that teaches e-commerce or business in general, right? There's the rules that you're supposed to follow, and that's generally what you're going to hear from people when they're teaching you. But then there's the reality of what actually happens. I know I definitely go a little gray hat and maybe even black hat here and there, but I'm not going to teach that on my YouTube channel because I know people follow what I say pretty directly, and I don't want to be responsible for that. And those are the things that it's really important to meet up with people and network in real life, go to business conferences, things like that, develop relationships, because when you meet someone in real life and they actually trust you and they can look in your eyes and know that you're not a punk, then they're going to share with you more stuff than they would share with you on the internet. It's just business. It's cutthroat.
And I'll tell you guys, in the future, if I have any people that I mentor or any students that I teach or anyone that would ask, I'm not going to give them the gray hat or the black hat advice. What I would do is give you the step-by-step instruction and tell you how to get a second or a third Amazon account with approval from Amazon. I know a lot of people see me posting like the different accounts and stuff like that, and they want to do it. The last thing you want to do is to have 3 or 4 of your accounts shut down at the same time and be out of business for a while. So I wouldn't advise that. There are ways to get approval from Amazon to open up these accounts. And, hit me up, reach out to me if someone wants to do that. I have no problem giving them a step-by-step, advice of how to do it the legit way.
What is something in your business that you're not good at that you wish you were better at?
I'm a control freak. I am very anal. It's the reason why for the first, 4 years that I was in the business, I did everything manually in Google Drive, in Google Sheets. I didn't even trust a repricer. I didn't have a repricer up until less than 12 months ago. I wanted to do all the prices manually because I wouldn't really trust, I'm a
What
control freak.
repricer do you use, by the way?
So once I actually worked up the nerve to have a repricer, and I was super anal and worried about it, the repricer that I used was Teikametrics or Takeometrics, however they're
Yeah,
pronounced.
it's like TEI.
Yeah, Teika. It worked great. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. I was able to set rules and pricing logic and all that kind of stuff. I never explored any of the cheaper options, and I should have, but Teikametrics was $500 a month, and I was running it on almost 5 or 6 accounts at the same time. So I was just getting raped for the price of it. And that's when I got together with a developer, and literally for the price of 1 or 2 months of what I was paying for Teikametrics, he was able to build me a custom repricer, which any good developer would be able to build for someone who needs it. It shouldn't cost any more than a couple of grand. I don't know what the cheaper solutions are. I can't really review them and say if they're good or not. But I had my own custom repricer built.
Nice. So I actually interrupted you, but I think where you were going was you were saying you're just a control freak and that it's a detriment to your business. You could probably grow your business, make more money if you would loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I regret doing is the partner that I work with. I really should have spent, more time, really teaching him and taking him under my wing and, showing him exactly what my processes are, which would free me up to do some of the more important tasks in the business, and, free me up to focus on Watch Me Amazon and some of the associated business ideas and ventures that I hope that's going to come from Watch Me Amazon. But I am trying to work on that issue, and I'm consistently, day by day, week by week, sitting down with him and trying to impart my knowledge on him, which will definitely free me up.
So, yeah, that's a major key, man. So because you're definitely basically the head of the Voltron, which is the business.
Yeah, but I spend a lot of time doing shit that I shouldn't be doing. Specifically is, we get a couple of pallets a day delivered to my office. And all of that inventory, it needs to be sorted when it comes in, and it needs to be counted to make sure that whatever you paid for and whatever you have on the invoice matches up to what you're actually receiving.
Is
So
it
that's
frequently wrong?
Yes, it is frequently wrong. And if you're not, physically counting every single invoice, you're going to end up losing a lot of money. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes they send you stuff by mistake. Sometimes stuff is damaged. So you have to develop a good system to kind of keep track of all of that. And then one of the most tedious, time-consuming things is to actually take those invoices, multiple SKUs, and create shipments inside of Amazon. So that's one of my most time-consuming tasks, and I'm kind of focused on teaching him and showing him how to work with that in conjunction with our inventory management software. And hopefully within another month or two, all of that stuff will be taken off of my shoulders, and he'll be doing all of that stuff, and I'll just focus on more of the important aspects of the business that I should be focused on.
Awesome. I'm gonna call you back in a couple months and see where you're at with that.
Yeah, bro, I'm very anal. Very possible that I won't be where I want to be. you
It
know,
happens. At least you know where you want to go. Um, what would you say is the worst mistake you ever made in your business?
the worst mistake I ever made in the business, right? So, Amazon always will continue to get more difficult have more issues, have more restrictions, have more brands and products gated, have more competition, it's never a business that's going to get easier. It's always going to get harder. And I look at my UK business today, right? And the pound is like at 1.32, the currency conversion. A year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I started, it was almost 2 to 1. So I regret very, very much not working, 24 hours a day around the clock to take advantage of that situation. And I will tell some of you guys that are listening to this now, a year from now, Amazon is going to be a little bit more complicated, a little bit more difficult, a little bit harder than it is right now. 2 years from now, it's going to be even harder. 3 years from now, it's going to be even harder. So the opportunity that you guys have right now, it's never going to be as good as it is today. So just work super hard and take advantage of it as much as you can, because we have no way of knowing, what the situation is going to be like in a year or 2 or 3. But I guarantee you, it's going to be harder. And my biggest regret is that I didn't sleep in the office 2, 3 years ago when the pound was at 1.75, because I would have made 3, 4 times the amount of money that I did in that time.
So leading off of that question, how much sleep do you get on average? Like what time do you go to sleep? What time do you wake up? What time do you hang up your spurs?
So I usually go to sleep between like 11 and 12. So not super early. There are some people who, grind around the clock and wake up like at 4 or 5 a.m. I don't. I typically leave the office at about 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. I get home, I walk my dog, I chill with my daughter for a little bit, I watch a little bit of TV with my wife, and probably by 11, anywhere between 11 to 12, I am already asleep. And I wake up at 6:30. That's when the alarm clock is set every day. I am trying to scale that down to 6 o'clock, but not quite there yet. Definitely have some days where I hit the snooze button and
So
sleep
at
in.
6:30 a.m. is when you hear, "Wake up, Dick. Today's going to
That's
be a
it.
great day."
That is it. That is it. 6:30,
I
walk the
love it.
dog, get dressed, head over to work. I have about a 40-minute commute until I'm in the office, and I'm typically here anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock.
Awesome. Awesome. So, what is your day to day like? Like briefly go over your day, like when you come into the office.
So when I come into the office, I, have a big pile of invoices on my desk, stuff that I need to just add into Amazon, shipments that I need to create. Then I sit down with my inventory software and see what items I need to order. But my typical day consists of adding shipments, delegating work, and then most importantly, going through the inventory software on each and every single one of my accounts and compiling orders and placing those orders or sending those orders to the vendors. And every vendor is on a case-by-case basis. So there are certain brands or vendors where they have a website and you log into the website and you place your orders that way. Some people you have to call in an order. Some people you have to email an order. So my day typically consists of the same shit, which is creating shipments for all of our accounts, placing orders with vendors, keeping track of those orders, and then doing kind of basic Amazon account maintenance for all of our accounts, which is just checking feedback, answering emails, and responding to Amazon on any open cases that we might have.
Awesome, man. So, I think we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes, and we still didn't even get into questions.
Let's do it.
Um,
My
yeah, I
wife's
think
already
it's a.
busting my balls. She's texting me, "You've gone on long enough. When are you coming home?"
Oh my God, we're cutting into your TV time. All right, family is very important. That's what we work for, right, bro?
But however, listen, I will say I don't go on, I think, as often as I should. I don't get to do interviews like this and, speak to you as often as I should. So, once a month, once every couple of weeks, when, we can get together and do something like this that will hopefully provide some value for anyone who's listening to it.
Yeah, you were talking about
I
doing an
think you
East Coast
understand.
meetup, right?
Yeah.
We should
Yeah,
do an East Coast meetup. Trying to
we
fly out there
definitely should.
and hold it down with you.
We definitely should. So you want to get to some questions?
Yeah, definitely. So we got a
How many
question
people do we
here.
have on the chat on the live, by the way?
Right now we have 47
Sick.
people watching, which is pretty sick. I think that's maybe about double of what I normally have for a show.
Sick.
So, first question is, what do you do with your UK stock returns? Do you have it sent back to you?
So in the US, right, if an item goes to ship, you can get that item pulled and returned back to you from Amazon and have it, have it back in your warehouse in a couple of days, flip it on eBay, send it to a different account. If you mislabeled something, you can get that item back and, get it back into your possession, make whatever fix that you need to make on it. In the UK, because of the shipping, it doesn't make sense to ship back one item or two items or three items. You kind of have to wait till you have enough stuff built up that you want to return back, that it actually makes sense financially to ship that stuff back. So if I have one or two or three dead items, I'm kind of just stuck with them until my UK accounts have enough dead stock where I can then forward them and do a return order and have them shipped to UPS, and then UPS will forward it back to me. And that's typically when I would have at least maybe 2 or 3 pallets of inventory at minimum that I need to remove. So maybe twice a year we do a removal order from the UK and ship back all our dead stock.
And what do you do with that stuff when it comes back?
It depends on what's wrong with it. So if it was something that was, let's say, mislabeled and Amazon doesn't want to fix it for you, you send it to another account, or you fix it, or if it's expired, you just throw it out, don't even have it reshipped in the first place. If it's something that is a restricted item on Amazon and you can no longer sell it, we do have an eBay account that we typically use as a last resort for stuff that we can't sell on Amazon. But usually the way it would work is if a UK item is dead and I can't sell it there, when I do a removal order, I'll try to flip it on Amazon US. Vice versa, if something sucks in the US, I'll try to send it to the UK just to get my money back. And if that doesn't work, as a worst case scenario, you should always have an eBay account and to offset some of your losses that way. And, a lot of times there are stuff that just winds up being donated because you can't do anything with it, but it's all part of the business.
All right. Yeah, definitely. So what percentage of your vendors are US based?
100%.
Is there any reason why you're not using any UK distributors?
Because I pack and prep and physically handle all of my inventory before I send them to Amazon FBA centers.
Just your personal preference? You don't want to get into having a prep facility do that for you?
So a prep facility for me won't make sense because we ship, anywhere between 10 to 20,000 units a week. And some of the prep centers that I saw charge upwards of $1 a unit. So even on the low end, they would be charging us, $10,000 a week, $40,000 a month. Our expenses to do everything ourselves with the warehouse and the bills and the staff, it comes nowhere close to that. Even if it was like 50 cents an item, the amount of units that we ship out, it just wouldn't financially make sense for me.
Right. So it's kind of one of those things is you have the system in place to deal with it and you're saving a lot of money doing it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at minimum, we ship 10,000 units out at least a week, and that would be $10,000 a week or $5,000 a week, even if there was a prep center that was charging 50 cents a unit. And it just would not even come close to what my actual expenses are.
Have you thought about doing private label?
Private label has definitely been on my mind a lot lately, especially since I started Watch Me Amazon. And the reason for that is when I started Watch Me Amazon, I started paying attention to a lot of the different Amazon personalities, softwares, coaches, all that kind of different stuff. Most of that is all geared towards private label. There are a lot of successful private label sellers out there, private label businesses out there. So it's something that I am very, very interested in. The cool thing about Amazon is there are so many different lanes and so many different business models, and all of them are super successful. You know, there are people like you and there are others that have built a sick business with online arbitrage or retail arbitrage or books. There are 2 or 3 different types of wholesale business models. There are people that, you know, have a low margin wholesale business model where they're all about, you know, selling and making a return of 5-10%, but they're doing 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year in sales. There are private label sellers that kill it. There are flippers that kill it. There's, you know, a ton of different paths that you can take on Amazon. And private label, if done right, in my opinion, is one of the ones that can be the most valuable, but it's also not super easy. But nothing on Amazon really is, right?
Right. Do you have any type of course or coaching program that we could join or buy?
I do not. One of my goals is to have one. I've been thinking more about it and giving it some thought. It's definitely something that I've looked into and on the agenda for next year. Very difficult for me to do anything. It's very difficult for me to even make a lot of content because it's Q4 and it's kind of like this super crazy busy time of year for me. But also, that being said, if I do make any kind of product, I want to make sure that I'm not just putting out shit. And, you know, genuinely, sincerely, if I put my name on something, I want it to be the best Amazon wholesale training course on the market. So it's not something that I want to rush out or that I can say is coming out anytime soon. But hopefully I will offer some type of step-by-step instructional wholesale course. But to be realistic, I would probably say at the soonest, first quarter of next year, at the latest by second quarter of next year, I, you know, have a goal of getting that done.
Awesome. Let's see what the next question we got. Do you recommend any software other than the private software that you had made for yourself? Is there any software that people can use that don't have the ability to have their own software made?
Yes, so my first advice is before you buy software, run your business yourself manually. It'll be harder, it'll be more time consuming, it'll be more annoying, but the knowledge that you gain for your Amazon business is just going to be absolutely priceless. I cannot overstate that enough. You guys should do it manually. That being said, when you get to a point where you have too much to manage, right? Because if you have 10 or 20 or 30 replenishable SKUs, it's very easy to manage and, you know, adjust prices and do all of that by hand. But when you get to like a couple of hundred SKUs and things get very difficult, I would recommend a repricer first and foremost. I know that would probably be a question that's better for you because I didn't use any of the cheaper repricers
Right.
like App Eagle, but you have. And, you know, if I was looking for a repricer, I would ask you and I would definitely take your advice and
Yeah, I
use
would say use App Eagle for repricing, and then for scanning wholesale catalogs, use Tactical Arbitrage.
Yep.
And I think I have a link for both of those things down in the description. If I don't, let me know and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, and more so than going through the you know, the catalogs, the UPC catalogs, and finding what works. There's another software that I heard is, I don't have personal experience with it. It's not a paid advertisement. I just heard people say that it's good. It's called Restock Pro. So it's kind of like an inventory management software. If you have a bunch of replenishable wholesale SKUs, Restock Pro is one that I heard good things about.
What is some of the differences with the taxes in the UK versus the US?
So in the US, you have sales tax, and it's kind of like, you know, everything is up in the air right now with FBA sales tax in the US, and whether you should be collecting sales tax where you're located or whether you should be collecting sales tax where your goods are stored. I don't like to give sales tax advice. You
Me
know,
neither.
you should definitely consult with your accountant. I will say one of the biggest challenges when having a international business, it's not really a challenge, it's just something that you kind of have to take into consideration and figure out and, you know, put the extra steps in place. In the UK, they have something called the VAT tax, VAT. So you have to register for VAT, and you just kind of have to take that into consideration because in the
It's
US,
like an
for
import
instance,
tax.
not an import tax. There's an import tax. It's like their version of the sales tax, But the main difference between VAT and US sales tax is VAT in Europe is already included in the price of the sale. So I'll give you an example. If you're selling something in the US for 20 bucks, it's going to be 20 bucks plus tax. So it'll be like 21 and change. In the UK, if you're selling something for 20 pounds in the UK, a portion of that 20 pounds is already with the sales tax included. So
Yeah, I noticed that when I went to the UK, is that everything that I bought was the exact price that was on the menu or the price tag.
Yep. So it'll be, yeah, and that's exactly it. But what you're basically doing, you're selling it for 20 pounds. 20% of that goes to VAT, to their sales tax, but you're just collecting it for the UK government, and then quarterly you file your VAT returns and you make payments on that. However, when you're doing research for the international business, when you're sourcing products, you want to take into account VAT taxes.
So what's your business ownership split like? Is it 50-50?
Say that again, you broke up a little bit.
I think you said this question already. Your business partnership is 50-50, correct?
So it's 50-50 on one UK account and one US account that we have together. Then I also have my own individual accounts that I do not have a 50-50 partnership on.
Awesome. Hold on, retail server. Okay, this is a question about products. So does the packaging have to match exactly as the Amazon listing?
Yes, it should, because it might lead to complaints. There's an example actually that I dealt with today where we were selling, I'm trying to see if I have it. So we were selling a box of tea, and sometimes the manufacturer actually changes the packaging, but it's literally the same exact item, just maybe the packaging is a little different, either in physically the one that you're holding in hand, or physically the one that's on the picture for the listing. But you want to make sure that the product that the customer is buying, when it can be, is exactly how it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, I've dealt with that before too. Let's see what. I know someone is asking you if you would recommend a certain selling course, but I already know you're not going to recommend it.
So there are a couple of private label courses. So not everyone is, I think, a good candidate for the wholesale business, particularly because there is certain barriers to entry. You do need a little bit more capital than you would to get started. You need to be able to build a website. It would be good if you had a commercial address. Some people starting out might have $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 to start out with. It is possible, but to be honest, it's very difficult to start private label to start wholesale with such a small amount. So some people, when they reach out to me, just based on what they tell me about themselves, I think they would be better off doing private label. And I have recommended other people's private label courses to people before, not because I'm an affiliate or I get an affiliate link or anything like that. I don't, but I would recommend the course. As far as wholesale courses, one of the reasons why I wanted to make my own wholesale course was because I've seen, aside from one other course called the Wholesale Formula, I haven't seen any wholesale course out there. And I'm not going to knock the Wholesale Formula. It was decent wholesale course, but after watching it, I just felt that I can do a much, much, much better job in anything that I would teach myself. And for people who want to build a private label business, or who are more geared or better suited for a private label business, check out this guy, Kevin David, on YouTube. He has a course that a couple of my friends took, and they gave pretty good reviews about it. Someone who knows his shit, puts out a lot of good informational content on YouTube, also regarding the private label side of the business. So that's the one course that I would recommend, but it's a private label course, not wholesale.
So when you're looking to order a product from a supplier or a distributor, is negotiation part of the deal, or are you just buying it at face value?
So it's good that we finally got to this part of the question, because being able to negotiate is, aside from the foundation and making yourself look the part of a legit business, having negotiating skills and building these relationships with vendors is the most important aspect in a wholesale business. Because if me and you are working with the same vendor, but you're paying regular wholesale pricing and I'm getting 30% off the wholesale price, the amount of products that you might find might be none, and the amount of products that I might find might be, 100 or 50 or 200 or whatever it is. So being able to negotiate and get the price down is oftentimes going to be the difference between, having a successful wholesale business. There are a ton of people that message me and say, hey, I've been going through these wholesalers and I've been going through this list and nothing works. Nothing working is normal. 99.9% of the time, nothing works for me, and I negotiate sick deals. 99% of stuff, even with big discounts, don't work. But if you're looking at catalogs or websites, or if you're looking at inventory from wholesale vendors and they don't work, why don't you research it? If the price was 20% cheaper or 25% or 30% cheaper, and I promise you a lot more stuff would work that way.
Awesome. So if you could travel back in time to when you first started this business, what is one of the things now that you would tell yourself back then that you think would truly help you have grown and scaled faster?
I would have definitely worked harder, spent, and just spent every that I can working. It's something that's realistic, not realistic rather. There's no way that I would have, slept in the office 24 hours a day. It's kind of just like a figure of speech. But when the situation was much better on Amazon UK, I definitely should have worked a lot harder than I did to fully take advantage of that business. But yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that I would do differently. I would maybe have built a website sooner than I did, and I would have saved a little bit of money on all the commissions that I paid over the years. But yeah, that's basically it. Just work harder.
Do you have any vendors that you have like net terms with, or do you pay everyone up front?
I pay everyone up front. I don't buy anything on credit. As a matter of fact, I just maybe 6 months ago, I started putting things on my Amex card, which is paying it off in 30 days. And I'm just doing that to, accumulate the American Express points. But I don't like to work with credit. I don't like to work with vendors. And there was a lesson that I learned from the guy that I first used to work with, right? So he would order a ton of shit. He would have like $300,000-$400,000, $500,000 American Express bills that he would have to pay every 30 days, and he would rely on his Amazon deposits to pay those bills. And then one day he woke up in the morning and Amazon suspended his account. As you guys know, your money that they're holding is now frozen for 90 days. And he has an American Express bill that's due in a couple of days for $400,000, and don't have the money to pay for it. That's why I don't really like borrowing money or being in debt or putting any debt on my business. If you pay cash with everything, you know exactly where you stand.
Awesome. Keep the questions coming, guys. We're probably going to wrap this up here in a little bit and let Larry go, because at this point, we've had him for a little over an hour and a half, and I'm very gracious that he has given us this hour and a half, because I'm sure, as you guys know, he could make a lot more money if he used this time with his business or if he was spending it with his family, because we all know that time is priceless.
Yes.
Let me see if we have any more here. I think we got a couple more questions.
Yeah, let's do a few more at least.
You use all US vendors, so that one's going to be not you said you ship everything by air, right? No sea shipments.
Correct. I ship everything by air cargo, which is more expensive, but just the way that I run the business is more geared towards speed and getting everything in and to Amazon as soon as possible. There are many different business methods, like I said, to running an Amazon business. There are certain people that I know in the toy business, for instance, that will buy toys in the beginning of the year and just sit on that inventory, for the whole year and look to flip it just in Q4, but you're taking a risk, you're taking a gamble. But the longer you have your inventory, the more the chances are that something could go wrong with it. So I just like to be super fast, get in, get out, flip it, keep my money liquid, keep everything spinning. If I had to stop and walk away from the Amazon business today, I would say 80% of the inventory that I have across all of my accounts across Europe and across the US, I would be able to liquidate 80 to 85% of my units within the first 30 days and just get super liquid and not have to worry about money tied up in inventory for a long time.
Awesome. This question, I'm going to reframe the question a little bit because it's about online arbitrage and you don't really do online arbitrage. But how often do you get counterfeit claims or authentic claims with your inventory? Does that happen?
All the time. Happens all the time. It happens very often. I don't know specifically how Amazon looks at it, because there are some times where I'll get a IP or a counterfeit claim, and nothing will happen to my account. And then there are other cases where people get their first or their second counterfeit claim, and they will get their account suspended. What I could tell you is, no matter what, don't worry about it. Keep your head down. It's just something that comes your way. You just gotta duck and weave and bob and weave and avoid the shots that are always coming at you. It's part of the business. Nothing you can do about it. I think
to deal with those, you just submit the paperwork, though. You request it from your vendors, your distributors, right?
Yep, submit an invoice for it, and 99% of the time that takes care of it. Sometimes I'll give you guys a good example, right? So I think a lot of these counterfeit claims are coming when someone buys something and they want to return it and they just want to say this is fake just to get a refund. I think a lot of it comes from that. But to give you an idea of the kind of bullshit that you deal with working with Amazon, so I have a product that I got a counterfeit claim on. And this is a product that I don't buy from a third-party source. I actually buy this product from the brand direct. Someone bought it. They said it was fake. I replied to Amazon with the invoice, telling them that I get it from the brand directly. They told me, not good enough. Your thing is fake. You still can't sell it. I went as far as getting a notarized letter from the brand, and then the brand themselves wrote Amazon an email with me copied into it saying, guys, this item is authentic. He gets it from us. He's an authorized seller. And for whatever reason, they still said, no thanks. This is counterfeit. You can't sell this item.
Wow. This is a good question. How many units do you order for a test buy on a new product?
Depending on what the rank is, I would order 36 units on the low end. If it's something that's super well ranked, I might go as high as 120 or even 240. But I'd probably say stick between 36 and 120, because you want to, maybe even that's not the best advice. Maybe stay between 36 and 60 depending on the rank, because you don't know a lot of times if you might get hit with a claim or an IP infringement or something like that when the item gets to Amazon. So it's always better to play it safe, send it there, see what happens. If you sell through it and you sell your first 36 units without any issues, you can always reorder more.
Awesome. Any quick tips about how you have your corporation structured in order to make the business more profitable or pay less taxes or anything like that?
So I think that's a question better suited for an accountant. And the reason for that is a lot of it depends on what your personal situation is. Do you have any other existing corps? Are you married? Are you single? Are you filing jointly? So it kind of depends on what your personal situation is. Myself, I have everything from an LLC to a S Corp to a regular C Corp.
Awesome. So I'm assuming you have an accountant that handles everything for you.
Yes.
Do you have an idea of how much that costs you per year?
So my accountant charges me $300 a quarter for bookkeeping, and I have multiple corps with him. And then there are certain kind of tasks that he charges me for, like filing corporate taxes is like its own standalone fee or something like that. But having an accountant,
that seems ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, and well, $1,200 a year at a minimum per corp, not super cheap, and then a
Oh,
couple
per
hundred
corp.
bucks.
Okay.
Yeah, and then per corp, right? And then to file the corporate taxes and this and that. There are all different kinds of fees, but one of the best things you can do in business, not just this business, in any business, is to have a super dope accountant, because there are people who make a lot of money and they pay 40% in taxes, and then there are people who have their businesses structured in a way, with a good accountant, with write-offs, with smart investments and smart money management, that make a lot of money, but net only pay 15, 20, 25% taxes, whereas a different accountant would have you paying a lot more. So super important to have an accountant.
When you first started out, did you have an accountant, or did you just start making money and then figure that out later?
So when the business wasn't big, I didn't need bookkeeping because there wasn't like a lot of transactions. You would only need to get with an accountant once a year, give them your statements, they would file your taxes. So you don't need the bookkeeping and someone to keep track of all your expenses every single month. You would still, however, need a good accountant to bring in your statements and to do your business taxes for you. But that would involve just paying someone a one-time fee and giving them all your stuff. As the business grows and you're doing a lot of transactions monthly, that's when you should look into an actual bookkeeper.
So, is there a certain amount of sellers on a product that would turn you away from it? It's a profitable product you can make money on, the rank is good, but there is a certain amount of sellers. Would that turn you off at all?
No. The only thing that it would do, if there was a ton of sellers on a listing, also depending on the rank, it would just kind of affect how much of that particular item I buy. So in the beginning, I'll make like a small test purchase, 36 units, 48 units, 60 units, whatever it is. And then I'll send them to that listing. I'll see what it's selling like, even with all those sellers. And I'll try to get an idea of, how many units I'm going to move a month or 2 months. And when those units start to deplete and start to go low on inventory, I will just order accordingly.
Awesome. So I think we're going to start to wrap it up. I have a couple more questions for you, but before I ask you those last two questions, I just want to let the viewers know that this Thursday, I'm going to interview Matt Loberstein, a 25-year-old private label Amazon seller who is very successful, doing over $1 million of gross sales this year already.
I actually speak to Matt, good dude. I follow him on YouTube. Yeah, knows what he's doing, puts out good advice. If you guys don't follow Matt Loberstein on Instagram or on YouTube, definitely do. And I will definitely be tuning into that interview on Thursday.
Awesome. Yeah, we're all going to learn a little bit. I'm learning. You guys are learning. It's a great time. So definitely tune in this Thursday to a Thursday episode of Reezy Talks at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 Eastern. We're going to have Matt Loberstein, a young, successful private label seller on Amazon. And with that being said, let me go into the last ending questions
You know
before
what?
we wrap this up.
I made a post earlier where I promised some people that I would get to some of their questions. My headset's probably going to die in a few minutes, but what do you say about getting to some of these questions that people commented on my post?
Yeah, let's do it. Whatever. I mean, I'll stay here all night if you. I'm just trying to respect your time more than anything.
Yeah, man, no, I appreciate it, but my wife calls the shots at the end of the day, as a lot of
Oh,
married people know. But
exactly.
yeah,
You
I
know who the
appreciate.
real boss is.
So World Class E-commerce asks, when buying wholesale, how can you calculate the shipping charges when your product arrives and know what will be your profit when it ships out of your warehouse to Amazon when you send in pallet form? Hopefully my question makes sense. So there's no specific way, because different shipments are going to be different sizes, and that's going to make the pricing of the shipment fluctuate. If you're shipping all pills versus if you're shipping all big toys, that's going to make the shipping price fluctuate. Whatever prep work is going to make the per SKU price fluctuate. So that's why I say, on any item that I source, $2 I'm just going to take and set aside for shipping, for my overhead, for, for supplies, for everything. So if you put an item into the FBA calculator, and you're left with, $18 and the item costs you $10 and there's an $8 gap, from that $8, set aside $2. That'll cover your shipping. That'll more than cover all of your expenses. And, just minus $2 from what the FBA calculator tells you will be a profit. And that should more than cover all of your expenses and all of that kind of stuff. Armando 0622 asks, how do you take care of your accounting, dollar-wise and especially inventory-wise? We already went over that. Definitely have a bookkeeper or an accountant. Best way to approach wholesalers to open accounts. Thrift in the Wave asks, and this is a good question. I get asked this all the time. You never want to, lead and tell a wholesaler that, hey, I want to sell on Amazon. I'm an Amazon seller. Do business with me. You kind of just want to have what we spoke about before, a proper foundation to give you the best odds of building a big wholesale business. And when you approach them, you kind of just want to say, hey, I'm calling you from, or I'm writing you if you're sending an email, from xyz.com. Here's our website. This is what we do. We're interested in your products. Please give me some more information as to how do we go about opening a wholesale account with you guys. You never want to mention Amazon, but you don't want to hide it either, right? So if they ask, do you sell online? Do you sell on Amazon? What I like to tell them is, I don't want to just tell them I sell on Amazon or I'm just an Amazon seller. So I tell them we sell everywhere. We have a brick and mortar. We have our own website. Here's our e-commerce website. Here's the link to that. We also sell on all platforms. We sell on Amazon. We sell on eBay. We sell on Walmart. We sell on Jet. We kind of do it all. So there's not just this one focus on you're an Amazon seller. Kind of want to let them know that if they ask that you sell everywhere.
Awesome. Real quick, let me get this one question in from the Fin Company says, and I'm also interested too. They want to know, do you have any other businesses outside of the Amazon or the e-commerce business? Do you have any investment properties, that type of stuff? Anything you're doing with your money that you're making from e-commerce?
So to be totally honest with you guys, I only really started making good money a little less than 3 years ago. So I don't have any investment properties. I don't have any side businesses. Amazon is my only source of income. I do hope to parlay the Watch Me Amazon brand and everything that I'm building here with you guys into a successful side business, which may or may not include a step-by-step wholesale course. I'm playing around and flirting with the idea of making my own repricer and putting that onto market if it makes sense. I'm playing around with the idea of releasing my inventory management software. I'm playing around with the idea of making a company that does consulting for sellers, which can get your account set up, which can get you ungated, which can get your account back into Amazon if you've been suspended. So there are a couple of different things that I'm playing around with. But right now, the only business that I have is Amazon and my Watch Me Amazon account, which I do consider and treat as though it's a business.
Awesome. Did you want to go through any more questions on your Instagram?
Yeah, let's see if I can do one. Someone's asking for what metrics do we use. We went over that. So it's 40% plus $5 minimum profit. Do you recommend using a wholesale broker? I do not. And Markcore329 asks, what would be your number one tip for a person that wants to start selling on Amazon? My number one tip is just start. I think one of the easiest ways to start is to, follow Reezy, look at some of your videos and do what you do with the retail arbitrage and the online arbitrage and the books. I think that provides just invaluable experience to, someone who's first in the game without any experience. Probably the number one best way to start is retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. But my overall advice would be just start. Even if you suck at it for a year, where you'll be a year from now is going to be so far ahead of where you are today. You know, that knowledge and all the information that you gain actually doing it for a year, you'll more or less be a pro. If you've never sold on Amazon before and you're like nervous and scared to do it, even if you fail for the next 12 months, 12 months of failing on Amazon, believe me, you will be a pro.
So is there anybody online that you look to for inspiration, motivation, or maybe even people that are in your line of work that are bigger than you that you look for mentorship at all?
Um,
I mean,
so I
obviously Gary V, right?
Yeah, guys like Gary Vee. I'm super into motivational people like Gary Vee, Conor McGregor, Mayweather, Jay-Z, Tony Robbins, a lot of different businessmen and stuff like that. Um,
Do you read books?
not as much as I would like to.
Right. Me, I kind of
Not
like
as much.
transitioned, especially once I started doing the Reezy resale things. It's like Audible or nothing.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but most of them are
What
just
What are your top
entertainment
three podcasts?
My top three podcasts. So I listen to all the Amazon podcasts, but they're more private label geared. No one really does a wholesale podcast, but I listen to AM/PM podcast, the Amazing Seller podcast, and the Private Label Movement podcast. But for the most part, all day long, I'm either listening to Joe Rogan or to the Howard Stern show. That's my shit.
Yeah, Joe Rogan is a boss. All right. One more question from the audience before I wrap it up with
Yep.
a couple
Last
questions.
one, because I'm getting the beeps on my
Yeah.
AirPods.
What was the most valuable thing you learned from hanging out with Gary V?
Honestly, that I need to step my game up because, I pride myself on being this successful Amazon guy, hardworking guy, this and that. But there are people that just work me under the water. And yeah, it was kind of surreal. He was already in his office when I got there. He's just working like 12, 14 hours a day. And there are a lot of improvements work ethic wise that I can take by watching someone like him.
Awesome. Okay, so I ask these last two questions to everybody that I interview, and the first one is who would you like to see me interview next? Who should I interview? Who would you like to watch?
Who I would like to see you interview? Well, there's a ton of interesting characters in this awesome Instagram reseller community. I would honestly be interested in in-depth interviews with all of the big players on Instagram in the reselling community. I think everyone is super interesting in their own way. One of the things that I want to do with my YouTube channel is interview all of these guys, yourself, hopefully get you on there as well. One of the names that comes to mind would probably be the king of e-commerce.
His name is Joe, yeah?
Yep, his name is Joe. Super successful. That's someone with multiple businesses, and that's someone that I would definitely be interested in you interviewing.
Awesome. You're not the first person to recommend that. So, Joe, if you're watching this, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, man.
Next up is going to be a play straight out of the Gary V playbook, and this is the question for the audience. So you can ask anything you want, and you know how it goes. What's your question for the audience, Larry?
My question for the audience is, put me on the spot a little. I don't have a question for the audience. My question or comment for the audience would be I try to answer every message that I get. There are typically a lot, so I can't respond to everyone. But my advice or my question or my comment to the audience would be just to hit me up and let me know how I can help you guys or what type of content that I can put out. I don't think I'm super skilled at being a content producer. I would definitely like some help and some guidance. And if you guys point me in the right direction as far as what I need or what I can do that'll help you guys, I would really like that very much.
All right, guys, just to summarize that up. So after this video is posted, if you're watching it live, don't answer that question right now. But if it's already been posted and you're watching the replay, in the comments, I want you to comment what type of content would you like to see from Larry. And I promise that if you give us content ideas, I will help him to produce those things, and we're going to get some amazing content out of Larry.
Yes, and last thing, let me just give a shameless plug. I launched my YouTube channel last week. My first, just an introductory video is up there. But if you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, please do. I would super appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, guys. I can't believe we took this long to mention that. But there is a link down below right under the video. You should be able to see it where you're watching right now. There's one that says subscribe me, and there's one that says subscribe Larry. So click on that link down there and make sure you go and subscribe to Larry's channel, because if not, you're going to miss some fire. I promise you that, guys. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Before you leave, if you haven't smashed the like button, I would appreciate you smashing it. And
Yes.
thank you for tuning in, guys. I'll see you this Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, when I'm going to interview Matt Loberstein, and we're all going to learn about private label. But thank you for tuning in, guys. And you know what I say, Larry, right? If you're not flipping,
You're slipping.
all right, guys. Peace out.
Later, guys.